While everyone's screaming about Florida's booming population, something absolutely devastating just happened behind closed doors. Governor DeSantis, in a recent public statement, accidentally revealed the real numbers that completely destroy everything you've been told about Florida's housing market. See, the mainstream narrative says Florida's unstoppable. Population up 8.2% since 2020. Fastest growing state in America. Realtors are celebrating. Politicians are bragging. But that's not what's actually happening. What's unfolding in Florida right now is a perfect storm of forces that even the governor can't ignore anymore. And his recent admissions expose a system collapsing from the inside out. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. There are three massive crises hiding behind those population headlines that are about to blindside every homeowner and investor in the state. First, there's the migration reversal. That's the exact opposite of what you're seeing on the news, and the numbers will shock you. Second, the institutional money that drove this whole boom. They're quietly heading for the exits in a way we've never seen before in 15 plus years of analyzing markets. And third, there's a financial time bomb ticking in Florida's condo market that could wipe out hundreds of thousands of homeowners. So what's the real reason Florida's housing dream turned into a nightmare? And more importantly, if you're sitting on Florida property or thinking about buying, what do you do next? Because what Governor DeSantis just admitted is going to determine who makes money and who loses everything over the next 2 years. So check this out. Here's that mind-blowing migration data I promised you. Florida added 467,347 residents between July 2023 and July 2024. Sounds great, right? But here's what they're not telling you about who is actually moving there. Americans moving from other states? That number just fell off a cliff. We're talking about domestic migration dropping to only 63,346 people in 2024. Compare that to 317,923 in 2022. That's an 80% collapse in just 2 years, folks. Now you might be thinking, well, people are still moving there. And you're technically right, but here's the kicker. 88% of Florida's growth now comes from international migration. That's people coming from other countries, not other states. Historically, that number was around 30 to 40%. Why does this matter for real estate? Simple. Florida doesn't control immigration policy. Washington does. And with the current political climate, if federal enforcement tightens up, which the Trump administration has made very clear they plan to do, Florida's primary growth engine could shut down overnight. We've been watching the Florida Demographic Estimating Conference, and in June 2025, they actually refused to update their population models. Their reason? Emerging and evolving changes to federal and state immigration policies. Translation? They have no idea what's coming. And they're not willing to bet their reputation on rosy projections anymore. But here's what really caught our attention as real estate analysts. Florida now has net negative household exchanges with Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. For every person moving to Florida from these states, more are leaving Florida to go there. And the people leaving? They're young professionals aged 20 to 29, exactly the demographic you want buying homes. Even Governor DeSantis admitted this is a problem. He said, and I quote, "It's expensive. It's hard, especially for young people who are just starting." But then he said something that really struck us. He admitted that if he and his wife were starting out today, I don't think we would have been able to afford even a modest 1,800 square foot house. Think about that. The governor of Florida just admitted that even he couldn't afford to buy in his own state's market. Now, let me tell you about this institutional investor exodus that's happening right under everyone's nose. You know all those headlines about BlackRock and big companies buying up all the houses? Well, the data tells a completely different story. First, please take 2 seconds to help us out and hit the like and subscribe if you find this video interesting so far. Each like, subscribe, and share helps support this channel and keeps us motivated to keep making you great content. Thank you. Now, let's continue. We pulled the numbers, and here's what shocked us. All 4 of the largest institutional landlords in America, Invitation Homes, Progress Residential, American Homes for Rent, and First Key Homes, they all sold more homes than they bought in Q3 2025. This isn't a one-quarter blip either. We're talking 6 consecutive quarters of these guys being net sellers. In Florida specifically, the numbers are staggering. Investor purchases dropped year over year in Q1 2025. Miami down 19%, Orlando down 13%, Fort Lauderdale down 12%, West Palm Beach down 8%, Jacksonville down 8%. Only Tampa managed to stay positive at 4%. But here's what really tells the story. Condo purchases by investors hit a 10-year low. Orlando down 30%, Tampa down 26%, Miami down 23%. These are the guys with the best data, the cheapest money, and teams of analysts. If they're running for the exits, what does that tell you? DeSantis actually called out this trend in 2025, asking the question that's on everyone's mind. Is BlackRock going in and buying these neighborhoods? They can afford to buy the homes and then they just rent it out to people. He's genuinely concerned that America is becoming a nation of renters where regular families get priced out by institutional capital. But the irony, while he's worried about institutional buyers, they're actually leaving. The problem is what they left behind. In Miami, 30% of home purchases are still cash. Jacksonville has 21% institutional ownership of single-family rentals. Tampa, 15%. West Palm Beach leads the nation with 49.6% all-cash transactions. So if you're a regular buyer trying to get a mortgage, you're competing against cash in almost half the deals. That's not going away anytime soon, even as the big institutions pull back. Let us walk you through some numbers that should terrify every potential buyer in Florida. According to Florida Realtors data, the statewide median home price sits at $410,000 as of September 2025. Miami, $578,000. Now, those prices are actually down slightly. 1.2% statewide, 2.4% in Miami year over year. But here's the problem. Even with prices coming down, nobody can afford them. To qualify for Florida's median priced home, you need to make between $98,000 and $100,000 a year. Florida's median household income, $77,000. That's a 28% gap between what people earn and what they need to buy a house. The National Association of Realtors Housing Affordability Index fell below 100 for 2 straight months in mid-2025. What does that mean? It means the median income family literally cannot afford the median priced home. In Duval County, the affordability index is at 66. In Collier County, it's 0.85, meaning families need 15% more income than the median just to qualify. DeSantis laid it out perfectly at a Tampa news conference in February 2025. He said, "What happens is that someone that bought a house for $300,000 10 years ago is now being told their house is worth $750,000. That's an unrealized gain. You haven't sold your house for that much. But somehow your property tax bill is going up." And here's the thing. He admitted that the median home price is way out of whack with median household income. When the governor is saying the math doesn't work, you know there's a problem. Current mortgage rates are sitting at 6.09 to 6.23%. That's actually the lowest we've seen in over a year, but it's still more than double what we saw in 2021. Monthly payments have increased 35% for the same home price compared to 2021 levels. So even if prices drop a little, you're still paying way more per month than you could have just a few years ago. Now, let's talk about insurance, because this is where things get really interesting. Florida homeowners insurance is brutal. We're talking $2,625 to $3,023 a year on average. That's 24% higher than the national average. If you're in Monroe County, you're paying $7,162 annually. Some coastal properties, over $10,000 a year just for insurance. And here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. After years of 40% increases and double-digit rate hikes, the market is actually stabilizing. Florida only saw a 1% average rate increase in 2024, the lowest in the nation, while 33 other states got hammered with double-digit increases. We've been tracking this closely, and some barrier island policies actually dropped up to 25% in 2025. Areas west of I-75 are seeing flat to 10% decreases. Why? Because DeSantis actually did something about it. Between 2019 and 2023, his administration eliminated one-way attorney fees, restricted assignment of benefits abuse, and created a $2 billion reinsurance program. The results are measurable. Litigation dropped from 6,000 lawsuits per month to 3,000, and frivolous property claims dropped 25% in the first half of 2025. 11 new insurance companies entered Florida in 2025, bringing over $297 million in new money. Citizens Property Insurance, that's the state-run insurer of last resort, they've shrunk from 1.4 million policies in 2023 to just 770,729 by August 2025. That's a 45% reduction. DeSantis celebrated this in October 2025, saying, Florida's insurance market is stabilizing with decreasing auto and home insurance rates, and frivolous litigation is declining. So while insurance is still expensive, it's not getting worse at the same rate it was. That's actually a positive development that a lot of people are missing. All right, here's that financial time bomb we mentioned at the beginning. And folks, this one is devastating. After the Champlain Towers collapse in Surfside that killed 98 people, Florida passed Senate Bill 4D. This law requires milestone structural inspections for buildings 3 stories or higher, structural integrity reserve studies, and mandatory full reserve funding by December 31st, 2024. Now that sounds reasonable, right? Safety first, but here's what nobody anticipated. The financial carnage this would cause. We're talking about nearly 900,000 condo units that fall under these mandates. That's 1.1 million units that are 30 plus years old. The numbers are staggering. Tampa condo HOA fees jumped 17.2% year over year. Orlando hit 16.7%. Fort Lauderdale 16.2%. Compare that to the national median gain of just 6%, and you can see Florida is in a category by itself. Miami already had the highest monthly HOA fees in the nation at $835 before these increases hit. But wait, it gets worse. Special assessments are absolutely crushing people. Winter Park Woods condominiums saw monthly fees triple to $3,371 a month. We've seen South Florida residents hit with $10,000 plus in assessments in a single year. There are reports of $100,000 assessments per unit for major structural repairs. DeSantis knew this was a crisis. In September 2024, he said, "We've got a problem with our condo market right now. You're putting people in jeopardy of losing their homes, and that should not be anything that we want to be doing in the state of Florida." He pushed through emergency legislation in June 2025 that lets associations pause reserve contributions for up to 2 years after completing inspections and starting repairs. They can use loans instead of requiring immediate cash, but honestly, the damage is already done. Jacksonville condo prices dropped 6.6% year over year in July 2024. Tampa down 4.9%. Fort Lauderdale down 4.2%. Statewide, condo median prices fell 6.1% in Q3 2025 to $295,000, and individual condo sales dropped 4% from the previous year. If you own a condo in Florida, especially an older one, you need to understand that this isn't going away. Even with the relief legislation, the structural problems still need to be fixed, and somebody has to pay for it. Here's where the rubber meets the road for buyers and sellers. Florida's active listings hit 127,109 units in Q3 2025, up 24.5% year over year. Redfin reported 207,707 homes for sale in September. Think about this. Florida now has more active listings than any other state. We're talking about 15% of all homes available nationwide, even though Florida only represents 6.5% of the U.S. population. Months of supply reached 5.1 months for single-family homes and 9.1 months for condos in September 2025. The magic number that real estate pros use? 6 months of supply is considered a buyer's market. Well, guess what? Major Florida metros are already there or past it. Miami shows 9.7 months, Orlando 7 months. Tampa and Jacksonville both at 6.3 months. Days on market extended from 58 days in Q3 2024 to 74 days in Q3 2025. That's a 27.6% increase. Translation? Homes are sitting longer. Only 9.5% of homes sell above list price now, compared to the pandemic era when bidding wars were everywhere. Price reductions affected 27.4% of listings, up from 25% a year ago. DeSantis actually hinted at where this is going in 2025. He said, maybe there will be a correction in the real estate market, although I'll tell you, I think that there was more authentic demand in Florida this time than in 2000 and 2007. Notice he used past tense. There was more authentic demand. That suggests he knows the party might be over. What this means practically, if you're a buyer, you've got options now. If you're a seller, you need to be realistic about pricing and timing. Look, after 15 plus years in real estate, we've seen markets turn before. What we're looking at in Florida isn't a crash, it's a correction. And there's a big difference. If you're thinking about buying in Florida, here's our advice. First, You've got leverage now that you haven't had in 3 years. Inventory is up, days on market are longer, and homes are selling for 3.8% below asking price on average. That's room to negotiate that simply didn't exist during the pandemic. But, and this is important, financing is still brutal. You need $98,000 income for a $410,000 home with 20% down and a 6.1% mortgage. That 28% gap between what people earn and what they need explains why sales volume is still below normal, even with better inventory. For investors, we're going to be blunt. If the biggest, smartest institutional investors with the best data and cheapest money are selling, you better have a damn good reason to be buying. Miami is down 19% in institutional purchases. Orlando down 13%. These aren't markets we'd be rushing into right now. Your cash flow calculations need to account for insurance costs that are 24% above national averages, HOA fees increasing 15% plus annually, and potential special assessments if you're looking at older buildings. That 10-year low in condo investor purchases, that's institutions telling you the math doesn't work anymore. If you currently own in Florida, don't panic sell. The fundamentals are correcting, not collapsing. DeSantis has proposed $1,000 rebate checks in December 2025 and a ballot initiative to eliminate property taxes on homesteaded properties. Those might help with carrying costs. But here's the bottom line. The days of buy anything in Florida and watch it go up, well, those days are over. Success in this next phase is going to require picking specific markets, specific properties, and having a specific strategy based on actual numbers, not momentum. Here's what we learned from tracking markets for over 2 decades. Acknowledgement is the first step towards solution, but it's not the solution itself. DeSantis has admitted there are structural problems, property tax burden, young people priced out, condo owners in financial jeopardy, the possibility of market correction. His team has responded with $1.1 billion in housing funding, insurance reforms that are actually working, and condo relief legislation. But acknowledging a problem doesn't fix it overnight. That 28% gap between median income and what you need to afford a median home, that's not going away without either major wage growth or significant price declines. International migration providing 88% of growth, that could slow dramatically with policy changes nobody in Tallahassee controls. And institutional investors heading for the exits? That suggests professional money sees better opportunities elsewhere. Look, we're not here to tell you Florida real estate is doomed. It's not. But we are here to tell you that the market has fundamentally shifted. The demographic tailwinds that powered Florida's growth for the last few years are stalling. Young professionals are leaving for Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas, places where they can actually afford to buy homes. The governor himself admitted he couldn't afford to buy in today's market if he were starting out. When the guy running the state says the numbers don't work for regular people, that's not a small problem. For those of you with money to invest or looking to buy, this is actually a better environment than we've had in years. You've got inventory, you've got negotiating power, and sellers are getting realistic about pricing. But you better do your homework because the days of everything going up are behind us. The next phase of Florida real estate will separate the smart money from the dumb money. Make sure you're on the right side of that equation. Drop a comment with your Florida market predictions, and if you found this video interesting, please subscribe, share, and watch this one as well for the next deep dive into what's really happening behind the headlines.